Hey guys, welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm. I am popping out to my greenhouse right now to close it up. It's afternoon and I am doing that dance of trying to manage this space and keep it the right temperature, which is often incredibly straightforward, but if you are going to grow in a greenhouse space, it's not as simple in my experience. I'm sure there are like highly automated greenhouses where you don't have to worry about it as much. But so far with this greenhouse, the two greenhouses that I had in Arkansas, as well as I had one of those little cheap pop-up ones a couple years ago. And with all of those greenhouse growing experiences, it's required being very aware, very hands-on, and just making sure that things are not going to get too cold and die, too hot and die, dry out and die. Currently, everything in here is looking really good. I actually haven't been out here today. Prior to right now, we're having a nice lazy Sunday afternoon. The issue I have out here is like today it's very chilly outside and mostly overcast, but it was sunny earlier, so that's why it's open. And like yesterday, it was very, very sunny all day. And even though it was still quite chilly outside, it was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius in here when we opened it up. It doesn't really matter right now if it freezes at night or gets very close to freezing, because everything that's growing out here, they're all brassicas, they're frost hardy. So it doesn't matter at all if I leave it open. However, I typically just stay in the habit of coming out and closing it up before the sun goes down every day, so it can trap in a little bit of the heat, because like I'm starting peppers and eggplants this week. I'm starting tomatoes here in the next couple weeks, and with those things it really will matter. And like with my peppers, if they get cold a handful of times, get down where it's close to freezing, like they could be stunted for the whole season if I don't manage the temperature well. And obviously with any of those frost tender things, if they freeze once, they're dead. There's no coming back from that. I was gonna water these, but they really don't need it. I am gonna put some of these trays in this one because this one has quite a bit of water. Some of these are looking really dry. And I think that this tray probably has too much water, so we'll put some dry plants in it to drink it up. There we go. So I want to make one final announcement. This is probably the last vlog that will be up before we have this webinar. This announcement is the reason why I brought my camera out here, because I wanted to make sure that as many people as possible heard about this. I'm hosting a webinar tomorrow, February the 5th, with a company called Seed Time that does garden planning. And so they are going to be sharing lots of garden planning tips, showing to how to use their programs they have. They have like a free program as well as different tiers for people all the way up to people who are market gardening and trying to maximize their space. This is something that I've been repeatedly asked about for all the years that I've been making content. And in the past, I've never really done like a really specific garden plan. And so I always told people, I don't know exactly where to send you for this because it's not something that I really readily do. I have a general idea. However, every year I have things that I wish I had planned better. I wish I had remembered to plant, that I had made space for, that I had done better on succession sowing and just keeping an idea of my spaces. So one of my goals this year was to do better about planning. I'd met one of the guys that runs Seed Time at a gardening event that I was speaking at, I don't know, over a year ago, about a year ago, something like that. And we'd kind of been in touch a little bit, but whenever I started looking into garden planning programs, this one came up as the highest recommended one that I could find. So I ended up talking to them. They're hosting the webinar. On the webinar, we're actually going to be planning out my raised bed gardens. So I'll be learning with you. If you are not able to be on the live webinar with us, you can still sign up and you'll get the recording in your email. So you'll still have access to the information if you're busy tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you sign up if this is something you're interested in. At all the webinars free, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great information in it. I'll put a link to it down below, and I'm really excited. I'm actually going to be, I'm waiting for that to dig into seed starting because I want to have my plan in place and maximize my efforts. One more thing, since I was talking about the greenhouse, I thought of this. When we first moved here, I obviously didn't have this greenhouse. Now we had a smaller greenhouse that we'd built in Arkansas. This beautiful place here is 16 by 20 feet. My husband Jeremiah and his brother Noah built this. It is not a kit. They also built the one in Arkansas, which was, I think it was 10 by 12. It was significantly smaller than this one. But I love having a greenhouse. It's definitely awesome. However, it's not necessarily required for starting seeds. The spring after we moved here, I wanted to start my seeds. This wasn't ready yet. And I ended up buying one of those little pop-up, super cheap little plastic greenhouses. It was something I'd been asked about a lot. People would send me these every single year. Just hundreds of people would ask me, hey, do these work? What do you think about these? And I'd never had any reason to need them, so I never tried them. So I took the opportunity to try them. Definitely it is a situation that you get what you pay for, and there is some awareness that's required in using them as far as like really securing it, being very aware of the temperature and all of that. But I did a full review of that little cheap plastic greenhouse a couple years ago, and I'll put a link to that if you're new around here and you haven't seen some of my older videos and you're kind of like looking at seed starting and wondering what you're going to do. I've got some information on that if you'd like to consider it as an option. The Cliff's Notes is secure the heck out of the thing. Make sure you're very aware. Open it on a sunny day. Close it when it's not. Don't expect a whole lot as far as temperature regulation, and secure the heck out of it. But I started all my seeds in it that year and it worked. So it is an option, and I wanted to make sure you guys knew that video was out there. My friend Cass, actually, they're in the middle of building like a window greenhouse and having to just plug through the project slowly and surely, as one does whenever they have like a whole life that, you know, homesteading is not their only thing that they're doing. And she and I were talking. She was talking about seed starting, and so I actually told her, I was like, hey, if you want, because her kids go to school with my kids and it's really close to our house, I said, you're welcome to have some shelves in my greenhouse. I won't use all my space and you can come start your stuff. And she was like, I'm actually really relieved about this because I feel like I want to learn how to use a greenhouse. And it's funny to me because coming out here being obsessive over the temperature and like constantly coming out here checking on it, opening it, closing it, making sure the fans are coming on, and that, you know, that making sure that it's all working to save my precious seedlings, it's become such second nature to me now that I don't think about it. But I will tell you guys, because I like to tell you about my failures. The first year we had a greenhouse, it was like a Harbor Freight kit greenhouse. And this is several years ago. It was long before I had YouTube. We set it up and I bought all my seeds. I, agonized over all the decisions, stretching my budget as far as I could. I get all my seeds in, I get my pots in, I get my soil. I start everything in the greenhouse. And man, after some weeks, I was like, I don't know, I guess nothing's gonna come up. Really, in retrospect, I left that greenhouse closed up. I mean, it was probably getting like 130 degrees in there. I mean, it was probably getting so hot. And probably anything that did come up, if anything did, it probably just shriveled up and died. And a lot of it probably was, I wasn't bottom watering then. And so with it being that hot in there, I imagine the top of the soil was drying out very quickly. And therefore, a lot of times if your seed germinates in the soil, but then the soil is so dry, the seedling shrivels up before it ever even breaks up to the surface of the soil. Another thing in retrospect that I might have done wrong that year is I might have sown my seeds too deeply. With seeds, they have enough energy to grow and reach the surface of the soil, and then they need to start photosynthesizing, like once they get their first leaves out. So if you put your seed in too deep, it may sprout and germinate, but never make it up through the soil because if it runs out of energy if you got it way too deep. And I could have had a little bit of that going on. Now I go by the general rule, like plant your seeds twice as deep as they are wide. I don't have any issues. But if you are in the place of like considering a greenhouse, it is a little bit of a learning curve. And I think that if you're just committed to like setting lots of alarms and like just hovering, I'm just a little bit of a helicopter parent over my seedlings in the greenhouse. And to me, I'm a very forgetful person. Having lots of alarms and exercising excess caution rather than not enough has led to great success with growing. That first year though, I didn't grow a dang thing in that greenhouse. It killed everything. The other day, I posted this photo on Instagram. From right here is the view. This is the view now. I'll pop the picture up on the screen. That picture was taken on May 1st, and I shared it on Instagram because I was, by about February every year, I start looking back very wistfully of my pictures from the previous spring and summer, because I like to know, like, how close am I to the garden growing again. Well, my friend Ruth Ann Zimmerman shared that. She shared one of her May 1st photos, and it kind of started this thing. We had a lot of people sharing pictures from their garden on May 1st and tagging us in them, and it was incredibly encouraging to like really realize we are not that far away from lovely springtime. It smells so good in here. I'm just taking a quick peek since I'm out here. Getting kind of close on some of these cabbages. Back here also, some good looking broccolis. They're small, but it's something. That cabbage is really pretty. We had a couple of really warm days, and I'm back in my bundled up attire now. We're gonna have some more winter, I guess. I knew we would, but just, I wore shorts for 2 days and it was life-giving. All right, guys, I'm gonna head back in the house. I gotta cook dinner for my kids. I just wanted to pop out here and put a quick little video up to try to get the announcement of the webinar out to as many people as possible. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I look forward to hanging out with y'all tomorrow on that teach. I bless you guys. Until next time.